Welcome back to How You Breathe is How You Live podcast. Hypervigilance isn't high-level awareness. It's just a very organized way to be on edge all the time. Today on the podcast, we're exploring the shadow of the watchman. We're breaking down why you're standing sentry at a toddler's birthday party in Scottsdale, scouting tactical exits, while your wife is just trying to tell you that she likes your shirt. We'll look at the catastrophe tax you're paying every day in a clenched jaw and shallow breaths, and how to tell your nervous system that the war ended in 1998. Stick around to find out how you shift from a glitchy alarm system to a high-resolution sensor. The war is over, soldier. You can go home now. I'm the host, Jake Parent. I'm the founder of Breath.Energy, and today I'm joined by Josh and Riley.
Howdy.
What's up?
We're definitely going to cut that. Let me guess. You're the person at the party who knows exactly where the fire extinguisher is, but you haven't spoken to a single human being yet. You're standing there scanning the room like a budget Terminator, convinced that if you stop looking for the danger, the drywall is spontaneously going to implode. You see yourself as the designated survivor, the one adult in a room full of toddlers. You've got a plan B, a plan C, and a bug-out bag in the trunk for a Tuesday night at Chili's. But let me guess, you're also miserable. You're so tight, you're vibrating at a frequency that makes a dog 3 blocks away uncomfortable. You think you're on it, and everyone else thinks you're on something. You call it high-level awareness. I like calling it paying a mortgage on a house that's already on fire. Today, we're talking about why your brain is obsessed with a catastrophe that hasn't happened yet, and why you are paying the price. So, hypervigilance. Symptom 1 is the safety scan, that you're on sentry duty and you're the only person who noticed the guy in the trench coat near the buffet. You're basically Batman without the cool car. Look at you at a toddler's birthday party in Scottsdale and you're scouting tactical exits. The only threat there is a sugar-high 4-year-old named Braden. And while you're busy being the protagonist of a Jason Bourne movie that isn't filming, you're missing the actual life that's happening in front of you. You aren't protecting your room. You're just the weirdo staring at the door while your wife is trying to tell you she likes your haircut. You're guarding a moment that you aren't even participating in. Another way that it might show up is the just-in-case interrogation, that you're just doing your due diligence if you don't ask 47 follow-up questions about why the milk is on the second shelf instead of the third. The entire infrastructure of this family is going to collapse. To everyone else, you're not thorough. You're a guard with a clipboard. You're interrogating your partner like you're a double agent for a rival cartel because you forgot to text when you left the gym. Who are you with? Why was the GPS laggy? Was there a breeze from the east? They're just trying to live their life, and you're treating a Tuesday morning like a deposition in a RICO case. Eventually, they stop talking to you because you're exhausting. You also have an obsession with procedures. If we just follow the manual, the chaos can't touch us, and that the manual for life is the shield. You love the rules because you think they're a leash on the universe. Quick newsflash, the universe doesn't have a leash. It doesn't even have a collar. You're at the airport 3 hours early, obsessively checking your boarding pass every 90 seconds, like it's going to morph into a ham sandwich if you look away. You think the procedure is saving you. It's not. It's just giving you a very organized way to be uncomfortable and vigilant and basically terrified. You're basically rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, but you're making sure they're perfectly aligned with the flight path. Congratulations, you're the most prepared person at the bottom of the ocean. You're running on an outdated operating system that was designed for a jungle, but you're trying to use it at the mean streets of Starbucks. Have either of you guys ever noticed yourself scanning instead of participating?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I don't know if it comes from hypervigilance. Maybe it does. Maybe it's just something I wasn't aware of. But it's usually an anxiety thing for me.
It's why does the brain think scanning equals safety? That I immediately notice when things are out of place or out of sorts or things aren't right. I know a lot of times when maybe I'm not going straight interrogation mode, but I'm asking questions about things because something isn't where it should be. And it needs to make sense to me before I go, oh, Okay. Like I remember a friend was wearing a pair of shoes that not matched them very well. And I was like, so what's, this may seem minor, but I was like, what's going on with the shoes? And they're like, my house sitting at my dad's house and he's out of town. So I'm wearing his shoes. I was like, one, this is a new level of cheap that you're like, I'm going to put the miles on someone else's shoes instead of my own. But he was also like, and how would you notice that the shoes are off? I'm like, because that's not your style. You should be wearing your shoes, not just this random pair of shoes that don't match your normal ensemble.
You normally wear Jordans. These are Air Maxes. Did you not get rewarded for that, though, as a fighter?
There was definitely a lot that had to do with pattern recognition. That's usually what I'm doing, is that there's a standard pattern, there's something off in the pattern, and I need to figure out why the pattern has changed. And in fighting, it was totally, I spent the first round of every fight trying to figure out what their pattern was. And then once I'd figured out their pattern, I was like, okay, now the fight can really begin.
So that's a good thing in that context.
In that context, yes. I'm not saying that there aren't benefits to hypervigilance. We all have these shadows for a reason, but they are somewhat beneficial. It's when they're practiced to the extreme that your gift is your shadow is your gift. And most of the time, that like the people around you, if you just take 20% off the top of your gift, it would be a lot less shadow.
Hopefully the overwhelming majority of life is not a cage fight. So you don't need to bring that vigilance and energy to the kid's birthday party on a Sunday.
Yes, but like a lot of people, when you're dealing with first responders, former soldiers, once you're conditioned into that, it's tough to take it off, tough to turn it off.
So can that be, like a lot of these, you talk about how the origin is in childhood. Are some of these formed later in life, like if someone gets deployed or becomes a cage fighter?
This one definitely has a childhood origin and an adult version that, you might grow up a carefree kid, and because of things that happen in life, which is what we're going into right now, of what turns that on as you get older. Why are you like this? Usually it starts with a safety source, a parent who is about as predictable as a coin toss in a windstorm. One day they're the loving partner, the next day they're a chaotic mess or a ticking time bomb. As a kid, you didn't have the luxury of saying, well, Brenda is really struggling with her emotional regulation today. You had to become a tiny, unpaid FBI profiler. You learned to read the micro shifts in the way they put their keys on the calendar. You studied the silence. You became an expert in the vibe because your survival literally depended on predicting the next mood swing. The problem is that you grew up, you left the house, but you forgot to tell your nervous system that the war ended in 1998. And you're still treating your boss, your spouse, and the guy at the DMV like their unpredictable mother. You're scanning for a hit that isn't coming. Now, for the adult, then you have people who earn their hypervigilance in the real world. Maybe you're a first responder, a business owner, or you lived in a neighborhood where not noticing things got people hurt. In those worlds, being hypervigilant isn't a symptom, it's a professional requirement. But you think you can just switch it off when you get home. And you can't. You think you can go from tactical scanning at work to cuddling on the couch in 20 minutes, but it doesn't work like that. Your body is still flooded with cortisol. And you're sitting at dinner looking for threats because your brain thinks that if it relaxes for even a second, the business will fail or the bad guy will win. You've turned a professional tool into a personality trait, and now you're wondering why you can't taste your food. For me as a kid, like you talk about what turns that on, my mom was bipolar and not diagnosed until she was in her 70s. So I just had a freak show of a mom. And when some people talk about, my parents beat me every day, I'm like, well, at least it was consistent and you knew what was going to happen. Mine was a random number generator that you'd come home and see a pile of dirt swept up into the middle of the floor and go, mom's sweeping. That's not good. I should run away for 2 or 3 days and come back when this is over.
That's the random, I can't remember exactly what it's called in the psychological literature, but the randomization of rewards or punishment has a very special effect on the human brain.
It has a higher response rate.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that you become more sensitive to it.
Yeah. If you give a rat cocaine, like they press a button to get cocaine, they get a certain amount of addicted to it. But then if you have them press the button and they randomly get cocaine, they get like
Hyper addicted.
hyper addicted to it. Then the punishment is the same, where if you randomize a punishment, I can't remember exactly what the study was, but I just read about it recently, where there are rats that you give them alcohol when they press the button, and then you randomize it, and then you randomly punish them. So they either get a sip of alcohol or a shock, and it does insane things to their neurology of the randomization of reward and punishment. So I can only imagine what that does to a kid when it's not like an actual, here's a treat with some probability, or here's a shock with some probability. It's mom doing that. That's got to be rough.
It wasn't great, but it does build, if you make it through, which not all the kids did, if you make it through successfully, if you adapt to it successfully, which not all the kids did, it builds a level of resilience that is not normal. That your ability to push through long after everybody else has quit that's how you build Navy SEALs. The ones that make it become Navy SEALs, and the ones that don't become drug addicts.
That's one way to go.
You're going to get one outcome. It's going to be an extreme one either way. One thing hypervigilants don't like is that the universe doesn't need your permission to fall apart. You think your vigilance is the only thing keeping the world spinning, that if you stop worrying that the planes are going to fall out of the sky, but newsflash, the plane is fine, the business is fine, your kids are fine, and even if they aren't, your scanning and worrying isn't going to stop the chaos. You're just suffering twice, once in your head and once when the actual problem shows up. You're trying to control the uncontrollable by holding your breath. You're basically trying to stop a hurricane by blowing really hard at it. This is the part where we look at the receipts, because being the self-appointed warden of the universe isn't a volunteer position. You're paying for it every single day in a currency that you can't get back. You're paying for it with a physical tax that your body becomes saturated. You're walking around with enough cortisol in your system to kill a small horse. You think you're fine, but your jaw is so clenched that you're basically grinding your teeth into porcelain dust. Your breathing isn't really breathing. It's just a tiny series of panic gasps into your upper chest. The kind of air you take in when a bear is looking at you, but there's no bear. There's just a spreadsheet and a stack of laundry. You're redlining the engine of your car with it still in park. It's not in gear. And eventually the head gasket is going to blow. You traded your long-term health for the security of knowing exactly where the nearest exit is at the dry cleaners. It's not a great trade. One problem is people stop believing in you, that when everything is a level 10 emergency, nothing is. That you've cried wolf about the vibe being off or a potential disaster of a weekend trip, that people love you have started to tune you out. You think you're being the guardian, but to them, you're just the guy who ruins the mood. They've stopped inviting you to the spontaneous stuff because they know you'll spend 3 hours interrogating the Yelp reviews and another 2 hours scouting the parking lot for any shading characters. You're protecting a relationship that's dying of boredom and resentment. And it basically leaves you without room for your soul, that your brain only has so much processing power. If 90% of your RAM and your brain power is dedicated to background scanning for threats, you only have 10% left for your business, your kids, and your actual life. And you wonder why you aren't creative anymore, or why you can't remember what your wife said 10 minutes ago. And it's because the security software is hogging all of the energy. You're a high-performance computer that can only run Windows Defender and nothing else. You aren't living, you're just loudly not dying. And ironically, you're still not safe. All that worrying, all that scanning, all that preparation, and the thing that actually gets you will be something that you never saw coming. You're so busy watching the front door that you didn't notice that the sink is leaking. You're suffering in advance for a future that might never happen. And because of that, you're guaranteeing that your present definitely sucks. You're paying the catastrophe tax on a life you aren't even enjoying. It's the ultimate sucker's bet. But like all our shadows, Hypervigilance isn't a defect. It's a high-performance engine that you just don't know how to shift out of first gear.
I realized I have a fun compare and contrast
Go ahead.
on this. I have certain family members who I will not name who are hyper vigilant about lots of things, especially travel. And there's this intense concern or anxiety around missing a flight. So they show up really early, and even when they're there, they can't relax. And I remember, I think I was in my early 20s, traveling with my fiance, girlfriend, soon to be wife or something at the time, alone for the first time. And I was just on edge. And she was like, we're here and nothing bad's going to happen. You can relax. Like, we can go to the bar and have a drink. And I was like, really? And literally, like, I had a beer at the airport bar and I was like, traveling can be fun. This is great. And then traveling with those family members again, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this if I don't have to, because it's unnecessarily stressful. And I think it fully broke for me when I finally did miss a flight, and it was not terrible at all. And it's also, this is a $90 Southwest flight to San Diego. Like, even if you miss it and the worst scenario happens, it costs you like $200 to get the next flight. And realistically, like, they're going to be nice and help you get on the flight and not gouge you for it. And with those family members in particular, everything tends to be a 9 or 10 out of 10. And the rest of us have stopped taking them seriously. And it's a stark contrast to my very vigilant, I won't say hyper-vigilant German wife, who notices all kinds of weird noises and leaks and problems with the house. And because I've been conditioned to downplay the hypervigilance of other family members, I dismissed her noticing of things. And then those things went really badly. And I was like, oh, that's just regular vigilance. I should listen to her. Like, we had an old hot water line that was poorly soldered to another line. It was capped off or something, and whoever did it didn't do a very good job. And so it lasted what I assume is like 5 or 6 years. And then it popped enough of a leak that it started flooding a ceiling. And of course, she noticed it right away and freaked out. And I was like, oh God, what is it now? And I come and I'm like, oh, this is real. And now I have a problem to solve. And she's like, I told you that I was making noise. And I was like, okay, maybe a certain level of vigilance is useful. And I don't need to just ignore all of it. So I've had the two extremes. And I tend to be either I'm vigilant about things that probably don't matter that much, probably because I was conditioned by the family members who are hyper vigilant about not missing a flight. And now that a properly vigilant person is in my life, I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this appropriately.
Right.
I have recalibrated incorrectly.
Yes, you were on the other side of the equation, said, I'm going to tune you out. And now you have to go, okay, maybe I do need to listen to some of this. For me, I don't remember when I made this decision, but I know at some point in my life, I made the decision, if I was worrying about something, what can I do about this? Can I take an action that is going to prevent this, and so that I don't have to worry about this anymore? Because of that, I do have 5 fire extinguishers at my house, and I do operate off of the premise of 2 is 1, 1 is none, that I always want a backup of everything. But then I also got to the point where it's like, can I do something about this? No? All right. Case closed. Moving on. I will not think about this anymore.
The insertion of asking if you have agency, I use that a lot too. Mm-hmm. My wife comes to me with a lot of issues, and I'm like, is there anything I can do about this? And it's a lot of the times the answer is no. Mm-hmm. And I still have to listen, empathize, but I quickly diagnose that I don't have any agency or even influence in a scenario. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't feel like there's much value in me worrying or being outraged by whatever this is.
Very similarly, I use the question, is this mine to worry about?
Oh,
and
that's good.
So often the answer is no. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten a lot better at going, all right, done.
Right. This sounds like a you problem.
This is a YP. You problem.
When I do have agency in it though, I've noticed that there are, like when I take on a new project, I'm working on a big tabletop thing for a cabinet right now, and my power tools are right on their edge of capability for this hard walnut that I'm trying to get into shape. And I was making mistakes and I couldn't get a thing right, and I just kept getting frustrated and angry with it. And I realized like the worst thing that could happen is I have to go buy some more walnut, which isn't cheap, but it's the cost of it is really not commensurate with how I am feeling about this. And so I just took a step back and asked myself, what do I have to control in this situation? And I literally couldn't sleep one night, or like I slept really poorly because I was just like upset about it and trying to figure it out in my head, which wasn't doing anything as I was in and out of sleep. But I realized the only thing I could do is take one of the boards and practice and watch some YouTube videos and try it until I get it right. And if I screw that one up, okay, that's fine. But like literally that's the only lever, that's the only knob or thing I have to tune in this situation. And so I can be hyper vigilant and try to prepare for every possible imaginable thing. Or I can just go to the source and say, here's the one thing I don't know how to do. I'm going to try it until I figure it out. And if I don't, then I don't know, I'll do something else at that point. But isolating that there aren't an infinite number of possibilities to make me feel bad and anxious or stupid or frustrated, and just going to the one thing that I have agency in and let's do that. I all of a sudden slept really well that night. I was like, okay, I got one thing I can do. I'm going to try it in a couple of days and then we'll go from there.
We'll see how it works.
Yeah. TBD. I haven't tried it yet, so I'll report back.
We're all on the edge of our seats.
I'm glad.
Which brings us to what happens when you integrate the gift of being hypervigilant, that you go from prisoner to pilot, that you go from scanning to discernment. All that energy that you spend scanning for danger, that's actually a massive amount of attentional capital. Right now, it's leaking everywhere like a broken snorkel. But when you regulate your nervous system, that leak becomes a laser. And instead of being suspicious of everyone, you become discerning. You stop reacting to vibes and start responding to data. You're still the person who notices the micro expressions or the shifts in the room, but now it doesn't hijack your heart rate. You see it, you acknowledge it, and you decide if it actually matters. You go from glitchy alarm system to a high-resolution sensor. And this gives you the superpower of presence. A hypervigilant person who has done the work, who has worked through the trauma loops for about 90 days, is the most powerful person in the room. Why? Because you have the bandwidth of a supercomputer with the calm of a monk. You have that plan B capability, but it's sitting in the background like a silent app, not hogging up the entire CPU. And when a real crisis happens, not just the ones you make up in your head about the Uber driver's tone, everyone else is losing their minds, but you've been training for this your whole life. You're the calm in the eye of the storm because you finally know the difference between a thought and a threat. All of that vital energy that you've been burning, when you stop paying the catastrophe tax with it, you get a massive refund. What are you going to do with that extra 80% of your brain? Maybe you'll finally write that book, or you'll hear your kids when they talk to you, or you'll grow your business without feeling like you're one email away from bankruptcy. The gift isn't that the world becomes safer. The gift is that you become unshakable and that you don't feel like the other shoe can drop all at once. You realize you're the one who owns the floor.
You have some prompts in here about creativity and clear thinking, and then the line about from scanning to discernment. How does this all play? Like the thing that it makes me think of is the process of developing taste, and like confidence and taste are what come to mind. So I'm curious what both of your thoughts are on the development. Is the potential for developing either refined or discerning taste part of the gift of integration?
I would say it is, because what it takes to develop taste is that you have to sample widely and deeply. That, like when you go into a writing program, the amount of reading, like if you go into a creative writing program, forget what the name of that program in Iowa is that's famous for their writing program, you spend a tremendous amount of time reading, and they're having you read all kinds of literature, high literature, low literature, humor, and a lot of it is not good. It's actually quite not good. But the reason that you're doing that is to develop that sense of taste, that sense of style, that you can't have a sense of style and taste if you haven't experienced everything. Like when chefs have to taste all the things, and it's only through that process of them going through that tasting process that they can identify where things are and what it needs and what it doesn't need and where it's at. And it's because of that depth and breadth of information that you've taken in that if you can reorient that and take it out of fight or flight mode and into safety mode so that you can retain that information and you're not using that to just repel borders and protect yourself, that you can gather enough data that you have a larger library of things to pull from so that you can develop that taste.
Yeah, it goes back to your comparison to the security software taking up 80% of the CPU utilization. If your mind is primed or oriented around all information is basically just being assessed as not even is this a threat or not, but what level of threat is this?
Correct.
There's no discernment or taste in that. There's no, do I like this? Do I like this more than this other thing? Do I find this disgusting? There's the amount of space you have for discernment in anything is so narrow that the hypervigilance is like preventing you from having any kind of full experience. And so by integrating this gift, not that it's like the carrot to dangle instead of the stick, but it's, I would like to have better taste. That
Right.
sounds like a good gift.
And I think good taste, having good taste is one of those long-term benefits. And I don't think it's something that people normally set out to achieve. With breathwork, a lot of times people talk about the benefit of the community and the type of people we have here. And there is a tremendous benefit to the community of people that we have at breathwork. That said, there's no possible way to market that or sell it. It's a benefit that people receive, but not something that people seek.
That's always been my criticism and a bit of a red flag when I look at CrossFit websites where they're like, our community is the best is front and center. It's not a thing you can sell. It's like you come for the fitness and stay for the community thing. Breathwork is very similar so it sounds like taste is a similar thing of you're not going to integrate for the sake of developing good taste. You may just end up with good taste at some point in the future as a happy accident of this process.
That you will end up with a sense of style. That is, when we talk about elegance or when I talk about elegance, first it has to be effective. And when we're doing breath work and we're talking about hypervigilance, it's like it's ineffective in your life, that it's over processing. And because of that, it's creating a lack of effectiveness. And that once you become effective, all right, now I'm actually effective. Usually, me being me and the type of people we are, we overcomplicate it to get something to work at first. And then we have to go back. Right now, as you're figuring out how to cut this lumber, you're going through a much more complicated process than is required. And eventually you're going to figure it out. And then after you figure it out, you'll go, oh, I have 6 steps here that I've instituted that aren't going to be needed in the future. I can remove these from the process. And then you move that and you simplify it. So now you're effective and it's simple, which makes it utilitarian. And then eventually you'll develop ease. And I think we're going to talk about that. That's like ease and confidence is ease. That if someone is being boldly confident, it's not really confident, that there's an ease and a fluidity to it that will make that process itself beautiful. That as you're building the thing, like when we watch YouTube videos of people doing their work, the reason we enjoy watching them do that, mowing yards, cutting lumber, laying bricks, there's an ease to it. Where they go, oh, that looks really easy when they do it. And then when we try it, we're like, there seems to be there seems to be a step missing here when I'm attempting this.
There's also a comical frustration you can watch if they show you the outtakes of them trying that thing the first 6 times.
Yes.
It's funny.
There was one time we had a celebrity trainer training us when we were fighters, and we were trying to do some Pilates stuff, and all of us were professional fighters. We were all falling over. We were all just slappies. It was not going well. And I said something to the effect of, this isn't what it looks like in the videos. And the celebrity trainer was like, it doesn't look, this is exactly what it looks like in the videos. We just added it. And I was like, oh, all right.
It's funny. I can almost diagnose people just from reading their code because you can see where in the process they stop. It's like a lot of people, they go through the 6 steps, most of which are unnecessary. And they're like, it runs, cool. And then there's this like anxiety that overtakes them and they feel like they have to move on to the next thing because they need to be hyper productive or whatever. But ironically, the whole organization is way more productive if you refine that thing and you remove all the stuff that was unnecessary. It's even funnier. AI is just as bad at this as humans are. I was using Claude Code to do a thing today, and there were a few steps that were unnecessary or like broke, and then I fixed them with AI. And at the end, I was like, okay, write all this up in a README so that I can put that in the repo and whoever's going to do this again can do it. And it included all the stuff that was unnecessary, that broke. And it was literally just like a play-by-play of everything we did. And I was like, this feels like reading junior people's code. Like, this was very helpful in the fact that I didn't have to write it, but I don't know if I made the world better or worse by committing this to this repo.
Right.
And yeah, anyway, to come back to the hypervigilance thing, it's like the confidence to refine and throw out, like to get rid of that unnecessary stuff that you needed to figure out the process is, again, that's part of that developing taste. It's developing that discernment. It's that quiet confidence, or maybe quiet confidence is the only Yeah, I'm interested to hear, especially from you, Riley, about what this feels like in your body. Because now that I'm thinking about it and reflecting, I think I need more time to realize what this actually feels like. Because I just have examples of dealing with my parents at the airport or me getting frustrated with myself trying to cut some lumber. But I'm now realizing this may be the thing I'm the least equipped to talk about from a deep embodied perspective.
I wish Kim was here because I can't tell you the number of, I'm using air quotes here, surprises I have ruined because something was out of place.
Oh, like you noticed an anomaly. And
yeah, I noticed an anomaly and immediately stopped and started backing out. She's like, let's go. I'm like, no. She's like, why not? I'm like, something's wrong here. There's something is off and I'm not moving until I figure out what it is. I'm not that bad anymore. But it still does pop up occasionally. We're like, the pattern is not matching. We need to fix this. Or we need to, I need to understand why it's this way so that I feel safe.
You said when you say it, I imagine you're talking about hypervigilance itself. Where do I feel that in my body? What does that feel like?
Yeah.
It's so closely attached to anxiety for me that I think it's only in this conversation that I'm realizing that they are actually separate. I don't know if that makes sense. But because it's so closely related to anxiety for me, I often feel it in my chest and my solar plexus and in my jaw too. Like the muscles, everything from my jaw, the back of my head, my shoulders, everything just gets tight. And I've gotten a lot better at realizing, like Jake said, that something is wrong here. Like this, either it's my energy or something on the outside, like there is something amiss. And I need to stop for a second and figure out what's going on. And more often than not, it's just a couple deep breaths and intentionally relaxing those tight muscles that leads to some clarity that lets me drop out of that hypervigilant state. And I've gotten a lot better with that, so.
There are a few meditative practices that are, like the guide will help you conjure up something that you're ashamed of or feel guilt or anxiety about. And then the prompt is, like, where do you feel that? What does that actually feel like? And you start to search, like, where do I feel that in my head? No. Do I feel it in my fingers? No. Okay, there's something in my stomach. And then you start to trace it, and it almost the looking for it.
So how do we help the so how do we help, words are hard.
Go.
So how do we help the hypervigilant integrate? Of course, we're going to recommend doing that through breath work. And as we move into the breath today, as always, your intention isn't to fix yourself. It's to commission the Watchtower. Imagine you're a soldier who's been standing guard at a post for 20 years, you're tired, your boots are worn out, and your ears hurt from squinting at the horizon. I'm walking up to you right now, putting a hand on your shoulder and saying, the war is over, you can go home. We've got the watch. When we do breath work, there's no pauses, no scanning, just the breath moving like a tide that doesn't need your permission to come in or out. So we'll breathe. With conscious connected breath work for the hypervigilant, the nervous system is trained to anticipate danger. It scans the environment constantly, looking for signals that something might go wrong. The pattern originally developed to keep you safe, but over time, the body forgot how to power down the alarm system. Conscious connected breath work works directly with this pattern because the hypervigilance lives primarily in the nervous system, not just in your thoughts. When the breathing becomes continuous and rhythmic, the body gradually moves from sympathetic activation, fight or flight, towards a more regulated and spacious, expansive state. The breath interrupts the constant scanning loop and allows the nervous system to experience something unfamiliar, rest, while remaining aware. During the breath work, many hypervigilant participants notice several things happening. 1. The mind initially wants to monitor the process closely. Your body may resist relaxing at first, and there may be a strong urge to stay in control. As the breath continues, something important begins to shift. Your body starts to realize that nothing bad is happening, and your breath becomes a signal of safety rather than a signal to prepare for threat. Your nervous system begins to release stored tension that has accumulated for years of bracing against what might go wrong. And instead of vigilance, the body experiences grounded alertness. Instead of scanning for danger, awareness becomes more open and curious. This is the beginning of retraining your system, not by forcing the mind to think differently, but by giving the body repeated experiences of safety while fully awake and aware. When we do breath work, we always set intentions beforehand, and we invite people to set a simple intention in the form of a present tense statement of gratitude. Intentions are not goals to achieve, they are orientations for the nervous system or for a way for you to be. They help guide the breath towards a new internal experience. A couple examples of intentions for the hypervigilant include, I'm grateful that my body knows how to relax. I'm grateful that I can feel safe in the present moment. I'm grateful that I trust life more each day. I'm grateful that my nervous system knows how to rest. I'm grateful that I'm calm and grounded. I'm grateful that I release the need to anticipate. I'm grateful that I feel supported by life. I'm grateful that I can relax without losing awareness. I'm grateful that I trust myself to handle whatever comes up. I'm grateful that my body remembers what safety feels like. Your intention doesn't need to be perfect. If one of these resonated with you more than the others, use that one. If they didn't, you're free to come up with your own. What matters is that it points towards the experience that your nervous system is ready to learn. During the breathwork session, the breath will do the deeper work, helping the body move from constant vigilance towards a deeper capacity for trust, calm, and grounded presence. So now we're going to talk about the weekly integration practices that you've come to breathwork, you've done breathwork, you've had a tremendous experience. And what can you do in between your breathwork sessions to help increase that level of relaxation and calm and groundedness that you'd like to have permeate your life? For the hypervigilant, your nervous system has learned that safety is fragile. It scans constantly for dangers, missteps, or betrayal. Breathwork temporarily quiets the scanning system, but integration is where the deeper rewiring happens. And the goal of integration is to create calm awareness. That the hypervigilant often has exceptional perception and intuition, and the goal is to teach the body that awareness does not require constant alarm. And the practices that we're going to talk about here will help shift the nervous system from perpetual threat detection to grounded discernment. Practice 1, the safety inventory. Each day, write down 3 things that went right. They don't have to be big wins, they're just ordinary moments of safety and things going right. Examples could include a meeting that went well, that your body relaxed when it didn't need to be uptight, And nothing bad happened when you delegated a task. The hypervigilant mind naturally catalogs threats, and this practice is retraining your mind to catalog safety, that over time your nervous system begins to see that danger isn't constant. And you can ask yourself, where did life support me today? Practice 2, the stand down breath. This is a nervous system reset that once per day intentionally shift your body out of scanning mode, that you're going to inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds, and then you'll exhale slowly out of your mouth for 8 seconds, and then you'll just repeat that a few times. The long exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, the body's stand down or thrive system. And while breathing, you can silently say to yourself, I am safe. The purpose is not intellectual belief, it's teaching your body safety through repetition. Activity 3, the probability check. This is a reality calibration. Anxiety predicts future problems. And when you're predicting a future problem, go ahead and write that thought down. If I don't double check this, something is going to go wrong. Then ask yourself 2 questions. How many times has this actually happened? And what is the most likely outcome? Not what is the worst outcome, but what is the most likely outcome? The hypervigilant mind is trained to overestimate danger and underestimate resilience. This practice helps you restore realistic perception. Exercise 4, the trust experiment. This is a weekly practice that once per week, intentionally allow one small thing to happen without controlling it. Let someone else handle a task, speak honestly instead of carefully managing your reactions, skip the extra verification steps. The goal isn't to be reckless. The goal is testing the nervous system's belief that constant control is required for safety. And afterwards, you can ask yourself, what actually happened? Did the predicted danger happen? And what did you learn? Most hypervigilant patterns dissolve through evidence, not through argument. The body scan for stored tension. Hypervigilance lives in the body as a chronic muscular tension. At the end of the day, lie down and slowly scan your body, your jaw, your shoulders, chest, stomach, hands. Notice where your body is bracing and under tension. Instead of trying to relax it, simply breathe into the tension and allow it to soften naturally. Many people discover they have been physically on guard for years without realizing it. The last practice, the trust ledger. At the end of each week, record moments where someone showed reliability, a situation resolved without your intervention, life supported you in an unexpected way. Over time, this creates a written record of reality that hypervigilance thrives on the memory of danger, and the ledger builds a memory of support. And at the end of the week, you can reflect on these questions. Where did I notice my nervous system relaxing? When did I catch myself predicting danger that never arrived? What would it feel like to live with alertness instead of alarm? The hypervigilant developed for an intelligent reason. At some point, constant scanning was necessary for survival. But the work is now learning new truth. Safety doesn't come from predicting every danger. Safety comes from a nervous system that knows how to return to calm. And that is exactly what breathwork and integration begins to build. You're watching me hypervigilant, my soundboard over here.
No, I'm just thinking about a story.
Let's hear it.
No, we talked a little bit about, feeling things in your body, and you were talking about that just now with these integration practices, and vividly remember the first time I was asked, I was, talking about emotions. I was in therapy, so I was probably having a crash out. And my therapist kind of listened to me and just leaned back and was very calm, as she usually was, and just asked me, where do you feel that in your body? And I had a habit of closing my eyes and putting my head back against the top of the couch. Just, I don't know, I guess I was hiding. And I very vividly remember hearing the question, like thinking about trying to understand the question. And I just slowly lifted my head up and looked at her and I said, what the F are you talking about? And then we both proceeded to crack up. And I'll never forget that because it was such just a question like this. What what are you talking? What do you mean? Where do I feel an emotion? Where do I feel my feelings? That's insane. And
Up witch doctor.
yeah, like obviously over the course of time, that question has made more and more sense, and I've become more connected to myself and my own energy, so I understand it a lot more. But I'll never forget just how absolutely mystified I was the first time I ever heard that question.
That feelings are to be felt. Like the actual feeling process of the word,
Yeah. Yup.
or that emotion is energy in motion.
Yeah. Things that I was not aware of, things that I had no previous introduction to that I understand a lot more now, gratefully.
Yeah. That's one of those things that I enjoyed watching your head implode when I told you that color is a sensation.
My head did implode. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. That everything that we think of as sound or any sensation, anything that we think of is a sensation.
And that anything that we experience through our senses is a sensation. That blew
Mhm.
my mind. Yeah. Crazy. Feelings are for feeling and sensations come from your senses. Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Thinking of red as a sensation instead of as just something that's visual. So it's not visual. It's just a frequency that we sense.
Yeah.
Hypervigilance is the ultimate state of protection over clarity. We live in a world of fear where materialist society keeps us constantly scanning for threats to our status, our property, our safety. It's a nervous system that's forgotten how to be comfortable with the chaos of nature and instead become a statistical slave to its own anxiety. In today's poem, we're going to cover The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. And I like this poem because it talks about the tax of fear, that it begins with the fear of what my life and my children's lives may be. You can call this the religious anxiety of the modern age, that the constant grinding and worry about a future that we can't control, and the lack of forethought. Berry highlights that wild things do not tax their lives without forethought of grief. This is the virtue of being present in the oceanic current without the need to manage the next 10 years. And finding the peace of wild things is a form of knowledge of the divine, that direct, unmediated contact with a reality that doesn't care about your materialist schedules or hierarchies. Also, a wood drake is a type of fancy duck if a duck grew up in Paradise Valley.
Like a statue thing?
No, it's a really fancy, adorned. If you see a wood drake, they're super fancy ducks.
Oh, like it's an actual duck.
Like it's an actual duck.
Oh.
They're just super, they're bougie ducks.
Are they also as violent and terrible as the other ducks?
They're still ducks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I have a reference point now. Thanks.
Hey. The Peace of Wild Things by Wendell Berry. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things, who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting for their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world, and am free. So hypervigilance manifests as upper chest breathing, short, shallow sips of air that tell the brain the lizard people or the sultan are right around the corner. And then in the hypervigilance state, the body wakes at the least sound that breathworks helps the nervous system realize it's safe to lie down spiritually. And during breathwork, you connect with the waiting light. This is the divine spark that abides even when the material world feels like a place of wrath and tears. Hypervigilance is the clutch of circumstance turned inward. We scan the horizon for threats because the world has taught us that we are powerless and separate. And this isn't true. You are powerful and deeply connected. And we've taxed our lives with forethought of grief, trading our consciousness for a permanent state of protection. This week, stop being the statistical saint who anticipates every disaster. Come into the presence of still water. Your breathwork session is a place where you don't have to be a yes man to your fear. You can rest in the grace of your own biology and for a time be free. How you breathe is how you live. Take a breath of freedom. Hooray, we did it.
Yay, it only took 3 sets of batteries.
You guys want to say anything about the poem? Do you want to say anything about the close? Since we're still recording, I can edit it in post.
What was the last line again?
I rest in the world of the grace. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free.
I like that. And I try to find that as often as I can because it's fleeting, but it is this, I have this association with presence and freedom. There's a great line from a book. I can't remember which book it was that I read years ago. That was, I will live until I die. And I write it at the end of, often when I journal in the morning and I got to finish the page. I just write, I either write it's all temporary or I will live until I die. And it seems like a tautology, which it is, but it's also I will live until I die. And there's this, because I feel I'm here. And there's also an Alan Watts line that I heard recently where he's talking about how humans are the only animals that have this obsession with time and mortality, it seems, and how there isn't actually this mass holocaust of death. It's just all of these other animals living fully present. And then there's like a knock on the crab. I can't remember exactly how it is, but it's like this. It brings me back to the other line of don't suffer twice. If you're going to go do a really hard thing, don't sit around being miserable, worrying about how hard the thing is going to be. Just let it be hard when you're doing it and then be done with it. And in the present, I am free. It's like the hyper-vigilant. And I think I said this on one of the other shadows is like you're being robbed of the fullness of life by being hyper-vigilant or by being any number of these other shadows, because like life is lived in the moment, and by constantly scanning for threats that may or may not be there, you're suffering twice. Like me sitting around thinking about how hard this workout is going to be tomorrow is often so much worse than the actual workout. And ruminating for all that time about it is just objectively, like you're being robbed of the freedom of living until you die.
And two, like that takes so much unnecessary energy. Oh my God, it takes so much energy. For me, I immediately thought of the probably more well-known transcendentalists, and that theme of reconnection to nature, I identify with very deeply because it does something for me too. And yeah, I don't think I really have anything to add. It's just I very much enjoyed that poem.
You are the universe experiencing itself.
Crazy.
I think my favorite line was, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light.
Oh yeah, that was a close runner-up.
That's a good one.
Because I remember even as a little kid, like asking my dad, hey, where did the stars go? And he's going, they're always there. They are? Like, yeah, they're just waiting. And how many things in our life are magnificent and just waiting for the right conditions for us to experience.
You could make the case that, God, this is such a shameless breathwork plug, but like it's all in there. What's the medium or the situation in which it gets revealed? What is it that you can do differently to see the stars that are already there? These things are already inside of you. What is it that you're not spiritually or emotionally open to that, I don't know, maybe laying down in the dark and breathing for 2 hours, let the stars shine through?
It's one of those things where when we talk to people about breath work, it's most of the time, hey, you're going to relax, you'll experience stress relief, you'll be calm, you'll be centered, you'll be grounded. But occasionally, it generates just an overwhelming feeling of awe, and that life itself is tremendous and what a gift it is to be here. And it doesn't happen every time. If it did, I would put that on the brochure. But I don't want to oversell it to people that like, hey, if you come in and do this, every week you are going to experience a sense of awe. And I think at some level you do. It also may take a while before the day blind stars show up and you experience that sense of awe in your life that has been there the entire time.
And I will say, once you get there, getting back there gets a lot easier.
Yes.
Like I've been doing a bunch of stuff. Like got multiple work projects going on. I'm trying to finish this shed that's now like a lounge, trying to mill this lumber. And my days have been really long. Like I get up at 5:30 and I don't go to bed until 9:30, 10, and it's basically work the whole time. And I was feeling particularly dirty and tired and exhausted. But I quickly came back to that, one of these breathwork insights of how incredible is it that I am capable of these things? Like maybe one day I will look back and be old and tired and sick and be like, I would give anything to travel back in time to be that young, that capable, that healthy, and to just feel that tired from a full day of doing things that felt worth doing. And it was just this instant moment of gratitude. Holy shit, I get to do this.
Yes.
And that's a very easy place for me to return to because breathwork got me there, and now it's easy to go back. It's like now I know the path to it, and I can recognize when I'm feeling particularly squirrely and ungrateful about things.
I think I've only shared. Go ahead, Riley.
Oh, just goodness, that reminds me of the Alan Watts Dreaming 75 Years, I think it is. Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
I think I've only shared this analogy once on the podcast, and as far as I know, it's an original analogy that I came up with, so I should probably use it more often. The difference between meditation and breath work is that when people meditate, the analogy is it's like you're being blindfolded and sent into a 10-acre forest with a stick, and that says somewhere in this forest there's a piñata, and when you hit it with this stick, you're going to experience bliss and transcendental meditation and awe and ineffable and the beauty and wonder of the universe. And you sit there and meditate and follow your breath, and you walk around for 10 minutes every morning swinging your stick around. And it generally takes 2 or 3 years before you hit the piñata for the first time, and you're like, ha, I did it. I have hit the piñata.
Wait, where did it go?
I have meditated. And then you show up the next morning and put your blindfold back on, and you can't recreate the experience. And it's quite frustrating. This is why it takes 10 years to become good at meditation, that it is a 10-year practice. And I joke that, or the other analogy is that breath work is that you're at the same forest, you have the same stick, you have the same piñata, and the blindfold's been taken off. And you can walk through the forest, see the piñata, whack it, immediately experience all these beautiful and wonderful benefits. And that when you come back, you're like, all right, I did that. And the next day when you sit down to meditate, the blindfold is put back on you. But now you have a roadmap back towards the piñata. You have a general sense of direction of, I have to go this direction, and then I turn here, and then I do this, and then I can get closer to it. And it gives you that ability to have that ineffable experience of awe that can happen during meditation and breath work more reliably and consistently, so that when you do meditate, that it feels more, I hate to use the word successful, these air quotes, a successful meditation.
More skillful, yeah.
More skillful, yes. That you can be more skilled in your meditation because it's easier to find that place. There were technical difficulties during the podcast that we largely managed to edit out. And because of that, I forgot to mention that there is a free download this week for the Hyper-Vigilant. So if you click on the link that is in the podcast description, that will take you to the free download for the integration guide for the Hyper-Vigilant. Thanks for listening.